Welcome to Horror Movies and Beyond. I'm your host, Ivotres Littles, and this is Shudderary, where we go behind the screens of Shudder original and exclusive movies. Today, I have a really awesome special guest. He's a YouTuber and has a popular TikTok page called The Storytime Guy, where he reviews movies in all genres and is an advocate for Latin representation. Let's welcome Matthew Torres.
Thank you,
Thank
Patricia.
you for
Yes,
joining
thank
me.
you. That was a wonderful intro.
Oh,
I'm so
thanks.
glad to be here. Thank you. Yes, I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm definitely excited to have you here. Like I said, I was watching you on TikTok and I just love your energy and you're
Thank
always
you.
smiling and having fun.
Honestly,
And I was like,
love it.
yeah, I
It's-
gotta have him on my show.
Well, to me, it's like because I get it. Like some people look at me and they watch videos and go, "You're a used car salesman. That's what you're. No one's that happy." I'm like, "Oh no, I'm golden retriever energy all the time. This is not an act. If something makes me passionate, I'm gonna be shouting and screaming and loving for it. So like, it's just cool to be able to like meet other people with horror and everything and just love the like. It's crazy to think that we're able to do this and people listen to us. Like to me, it's like I feel like it's so wonderful to be able to shout a message that you love, especially when it comes to, in my case, Latino representation, and people like, yes, we like you. Here's money. Do an ad like that, and I'm like, y'all are crazy. This is crazy. And so to be able to come on this podcast and talk about Shudder, which I've been like a Shudder member since day one. I remember when they first opened up, everyone was first announced and everything. I was like, this is so. The fact that we're on this podcast talking about Shuddery and the movie we're going to talk about today, I'm very, very, very hyper and very excited.
Well, like I said, I love your energy. We need more of that. So today we're going to talk about Shudder original movie. I hope I say it right. La Llorona.
It's La Llorona. So the double L's is yeah. La Llorona.
See my Spanish.
Don't worry, say La Llorona. It's all right. I've heard it's
La. Okay,
fine.
no.
Okay. Oh,
I'm going to say it right.
All right, let's do this.
Okay, you go first.
So it's La. You got that part right. And then the double L's are yeah.
La Llorona.
There you go, La Llorona.
See, you're rolling the R's.
Well, it's not like it's like the R is like, but it's like a La Llorona. It's like Corona.
Like Corona. Llorona.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
the weeping woman.
Oh man, I'm so not Spanish.
It's fine.
Not a Spanish bone in my body.
I mean, but that's kind of the whole message of this movie too, is Spanish, and the Mayan and everything. So, it's good. But hey, look, I feel like, and this goes for anyone listening, it's okay if you try. Like, yes, look, Latinos will make fun of you. That's what we do. But there's no harm for it. There's no like mean-spirited way for it. We just make fun of everyone, but it's all with love in our heart. So as long as you try to say La Llorona, we'll be like, that's not how you say it. But most of us will not be like, idiot. They'll be like, that's not it. Look at the way you said it. So it's not a big deal. Trust me. It's great that you tried though. That's what I'll say to that. And you said it well. Let me be clear. You did say it well.
Well, my ex is Mexican, so and I was with him for 9 years. I at least could have learned how to roll an R here and there. But
my wife is Mexican, she can't roll an R. It's okay.
Spanish. He really is speaking any Spanish to me. And I would ask him, like, why not? He's like, what for? To learn.
A lot of Latinos can't speak. It's all right. It's my wife literally still can't roll her R's. She still can't roll it. It's all right. Sometimes and the thing is, I'm Puerto Rican too, so I'm Mexican and Puerto Rican, and my dad, Caribbeans, their V's are B's. And so that affects all my words. So when my dad was teaching me all language, I say like Victor or like victory instead of victory. So it's just natural things that even it comes with the accent. So don't worry, I like it. But it's a good discussion of everything when it comes to Spanish, and it's what this movie is about is colonization.
Yeah, let's get to the movie because I feel like I'm never gonna get it.
You could just say the weeping woman. People will still know.
Oh, okay, the weeping. See, I can't.
Yeah, there's two W's.
Dang, I can't speak. What happened? I was just talking to you for like 30 minutes before. Oh my goodness, I'm. Okay, let's get started. Well, well, before we actually get into it, there will be spoilers. We're gonna spoil it. So if you haven't seen it, oh well.
Yeah,
Or you can
exactly.
go check it out on Shudder. It is on Shudder right now. But if not, stick around. Stick around. We got lots to say. So, but furthermore, let's talk a little bit about yourself, like the storytime guy.
Sure. Yeah, like
what do you do? Like, come on.
yeah,
Let's
so
hear.
so I'm a content creator, sort of like part-time, full-time. I make enough from ads and everything that I'm able to do this as a living. And when I'm not doing that, I'm a substitute teacher. So I work at a high school, substitute 2-3 days a week. And yeah, and I do there what I do everywhere. I have fun. I educate the kids as best as I can. And if I can, because the school is predominantly Latino kids, so if I can talk about Latino representation with them, I do, and so it's that's what I do, both on as a job and as a hobby / content creator, just talk about Latino representation.
We meet Carmen and Nat. About this whole family and dynamic from, you know what? There's so many things that's in that film that's very interesting. You have this family who treats like the maids and the servants. It was the attitude they were given when they were on their way to a trial.
Yeah.
Of the
when
century,
the mom, the wife of the general, was the way she was talking to those indigenous, I was like, bro,
I know they was like, you're ungrateful,
energy.
You're not gonna find any work, and you know what? They still left. They still left because there's something in this house we ain't about to deal with it. So we'll take our chances out in the streets. I mean, they were just like ready to go. But see, at the moment they were talking to each other and they couldn't understand each other, I was like, well, that's like, it kind of like, what? But then I figured they were the native.
Mm-hmm. They weren't speaking Spanish. They were speaking Mayan. Yeah. So that's one of the, for people.
So they were Spanish. So
yes.
So
Alma,
so
they're Latino.
Alma is Mayan.
Yes.
Right? Because but I'm gonna say all.
Ask away and everything. Yeah.
Is it Valeria? Valerina? The maid.
Yeah. Yes.
Let's see. Well, lucky you're here.
She was. Yeah, she was. And to put it,
she spoke both of them.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And she's kind of like the Uncle Tom kind of thing of the situation. If you really genuinely just look at this, because the reason I like this movie is everything, because it tells a story of race, and their race is expansive on everything. Because it takes place in Guatemala, so you're into like, oh, it's Latinos. But even Latinos, we have our issues with racism and colorism in our society. So they're all Latino. But you can see that there's more indigenous, the way they look, the way they talk, the way they are, that they're indigenous Latinos opposed to the more Spanish blood, Spaniards, light-skinned Latinos, and how they treat each other. So we always have this idea in like United States, it's like United States did with, whites and the slavery, and then we move on, and then now it's Mexicans, and it's like, and you can even see this movie was made in 2019, and even so, we still see this dynamic of there's that maid, because, spoiler for the end of the movie, she's not part of this. In fact, she tries to help save the family because she's, and so
but
I
mean, I get it. I never saw her as like the enemy, like, oh, why are you taking their sides? I think she's just trying to survive.
Yeah,
she doesn't want to be out there. It was like, but I can understand what you're saying, like she's the Uncle Tom in this, but she's not that bad.
She's not that. She's not Samuel Jackson in Django.
Yeah, the Django. But like, no, she's not. But
yeah, she's not that. But you can see that she's trying to be the mediator, and she's like, this is the job, but she also kind of is ignoring her indigenous heritage until the end when she's like, in that whole speech where she's like, look, I know they're bad. If you want to take one, take the general. Like, the daughter doesn't deserve to die. And so you kind of they really humanize her in the end. But yeah, I mean, the whole story is just violent.
The court hearing. So the court hearing that they're going to is for the dad, the general, who did some terrible things, like a whole genocide in Guatemala, and the cruelty, the murder, the tortures of the natives that he did there. And he was found. I mean, before we say that, there was something that was very chilling, that whole court hearing, but then you had this woman wearing the veil. I'm not sure what you would call what they were wearing, but there was a group of other women
it's like
also wearing that.
Yeah, it's like a mourning veils of like a funeral veil.
Oh, okay. And there was something that she said during the court hearing after she said what she was, describing. And she had said the woman is not embarrassed. Well, she had an interpreter. So the interpreter is like speaking for the woman. And he said that the woman is not embarrassed to tell her story. She hopes you're not embarrassed to do justice.
Iconic
that
line,
right there. I mean, it hit me, but not just from the film. It was just like, isn't that how life is now? Yeah. Like, some people know something is wrong. It's like some people don't act on it or don't, use the justice system. Accurate, because they're afraid what other people may think of them, even though they know it's completely wrong. And that was just so chilling when she said that. But then in my
she's right though, because look what happens.
And then he ends up being guilty, found guilty, and then that's where it just, I really like how this film did that. Like, you never see the guilt. You're like, someone say they're guilty, they're either found innocent, and then you have the hauntings and all this crazy stuff. But no, he was found guilty. And he over there faking a heart attack.
Yeah, he's like, he's smoking a cigarette in the next
can't breathe. And it was like, that was different right then and there. That was completely different. So you see them in the house just trapped. And then the whole city, town, the country was outside just chanting and making music and I loved moaning. I
loved it because it was, to me, like watching that scene, like, because there's always, as a filmmaker, when you're making films, to trap a character in a single location is difficult. You have to, if they're on a bus, you have the bus that's break down. Okay, but why does it break down? How come they can't fix it? Is it believable that it breaks down? If they're in the big question, if you're in a horror movie, why don't they get out? Like it's one of these questions of, what is keeping them in this location? That's a big part of horror movies. Why are they there? Why can't they leave? And I felt like this movie perfectly created a perfect reasoning for them not being able to leave. They can't. There's a mob outside, and we see that mob is dangerous. They're upset. They're mad. He's guilty, and yet he's probably not going to serve any justice. He's probably not going to serve any time because he's old. So it's one of those things of like, they want him to stand true. They want him to get, you were guilty. Do your job. Like, let's move to the next step. And he's like, so he's kind of staying in his house and everything, but they're trapped, and there's this sense of claustrophobia that the little girl feels. And when the Llorona character is revealed, which, God, that woman was gorgeous. You're like, oh, they're trapped. They're trapped in there with her,
Well, see, the thing, you got to remember, they're in that house. They're trapped. They can't leave, technically. Yeah. However, the ghost was like, the weeping woman was like, okay, you won't come out. I'm coming in.
Yeah. And the way they introduced her, the way he's looking and she's in the white dress, and like, just the way, like, there was 100 people in that scene, and yet you immediately focus on her, the way she looks, the way her hair, and it's like, especially for Latinos, our hair is very important to us, especially indigenous. The hair is very, very, the black straight hair is this very powerful sign of who they are, their culture. And if you notice in scene, she's always touching her hair, she's always running her fingers through it, because it's that iconic look. And they never demonize her as La Llorona. We never see her as like this monstrous creature. And even when they reveal, how she gets, I'll get to that. We'll get to the end when we get to the end.
Well, you know what? When she walked up with the cop barricade, the barricade that was right there, I immediately said, they can't see her.
Yeah, it felt like she was.
That was the first thing. Yeah, she's a ghost. They can't see her, and she was looking up, but she made sure he could see her.
Yeah.
And then she came in because it was already known for the people that left that they're looking for more help. Yeah. So it wasn't like perfect. She magically appeared.
Exactly.
No, it was spread around, and it manifested itself to say, okay, I'm gonna go in there, but it was very subtle the way she was doing everything, because it was like, why is she so fixated on the daughter? And I believe the daughter name was Sarah, she was so fixated. I was like, oh man, she gonna do something to that kid. No, she was teaching her how to hold her breath.
Yeah, she was teaching her all the which ways. She was teaching her, to me, I'm like, oh, she's passing it on. She's passing on this, like, I think it's wonderful because you're like colonizing the colonizer kind of bit. Like they're taking the daughter of the granddaughter, and she's teaching her the ways. She was helping her spot that ghost at the end of the movie where they're like, oh, that guy's dead here. Like this is C1, but he's clearly there. And the daughter's like, are you sure? And Llorona's like, no, she's there. Like, look, you see him. And so it was that, like, she's taking her under their wing, and you're kind of like she's just this weird bit of drowning, and it feels like it's torturous, and at the same time friendly. I don't really like exactly know what her intentions were, because if it was revealed in the movie that she was trying to kill her, I'd be like, I could see that. But if she was also trying to like teach her, I'd be like, oh, because at the end of the day, she's teaching her granddaughter that the grandfather is terrible, which he really, really is he is an awful person. And when he got the boner and that scene and everything, I couldn't stop laughing.
And that was and you know what? But the mom, I think her name was Carmen.
Yeah.
She caught him. Oh my God.
She was like, my husband's a hoe.
Well, she like opened the door and just like he's like sitting there like full strong. And she still blamed Alma.
Yeah.
Oh, don't wear the other clothes because that one makes your it's too tight on you.
And it's like she's a petite woman. She's like a very skinny woman with very little curves, and you're like, that's too tight for you. Like,
but I'm like, you still taking sides. Even the daughter at some point was like, you know what? She started throwing her hands up. I can't do this.
Yeah, when he shot the granddaughter by accident. And the daughter was taking the gun. She's like, you better back up, bro. Like, you don't shoot my daughter. And yet the grandmother, the wife of the general, she was always, from the beginning to literally until like the final scene, she was always defending her husband. And like, she knew he was a scumbag. And yet I think the scene where they're in like the building at the beginning talking, and she's like, well, they would come to work and they would, they would treat them, they would turn them into whores and whatever, and, prostitute them. And then she's like, I remember you're leaving out a story. I remember you were yelling at dad for that. Like, I remember as a kid, you yelled at dad for that. And she's like, oh, well, like, you're like, oh, you caught me red-handed. She's like, well, it's not your father. He's a man, and those girls are whores. And you're like, is that what happened? Is that? And so I love the dream sequence that gets towards the end with the mother or the grandmother, because we see that she's finally understanding how terrible her husband is. Because it's one thing to be like, oh, my husband's a genocide or whatever. But the way the magic of the movie and everything and the horror is that she literally experienced the terrible truth of what her husband did. And to me personally, I'm a folklorist. I love folklore from around the world, especially when it comes to Latin America. And, as a Latino and everything, you could pick any town in all of Latin America. Each of them has a different version of what happened with La Llorona. Everyone believes, oh, it was a husband, it was a Spaniard, she was indigenous, she was Latino, she was Mexican, blah, 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 blah. She kills people, she didn't kill people. And one of the things that I found, because we really don't know the origin of the character, is that I've always firmly believed, and this is what my mother told me, and she grew up in rural Mexico, no electricity or nothing, that she was told that La Llorona did not drown her kids. That La Llorona was, that they drowned by accident, and that she had a mental breakdown, and that the chisme and the gossip was spread from the fact that her kids drowned, and they just went, she did it. She drowned her own kids. And when you're already distraught and you're having a mental breakdown, hearing that is going to make you worse. And so my mother is in full belief that this is a real thing that really happened. And, there was something that terrible that just kind of took off from there. So to see that in the movie, that's when I was like, thank you for doing that, because I was tired of the old trend of drowning her own kids.
Where the general was such a terrible man, but see, there was something that was a little off to me, and I'll get to that in a second. But to see what the general was, because the mom Carmen or whatever, it seemed like she had blinders on, like she knew her husband was terrible, but she got to see how terrible when he had the woman that appears to look like Alma, and then they was like, "Where's your husband? Where's that?" Or your, and she's like, "I don't." They had a language problem.
Yeah, she was speaking Mayan, and they couldn't. Yeah, it's sad. It's really sad.
Oh, you tell me this, or I'm gonna drown your kids. And it's like, well, wait, I can't even understand you. But she doesn't even know that they're going to do that because they're taking the kids, because she can't understand.
She can't understand him.
He can't understand. So that was just horrible. Shot her, and then we saw, she was laying in water, because water is such an important part of this. And they got rid of the 2 kids, but then there was some, but next to him was his helper, which you see that was help burying him when the mom was strangling him, because it was actually Alma, the ghost, that was using her to visually see what happened to her and the kids, help strangle. And they're all looking like, they didn't even stop her. They were like,
let her kill her. Let him kill her. The help was like, he deserves it. The daughter was like, he deserves it. The granddaughter, she was like, he deserved it. And the mother, it was the grandmother that was the last one that really needed convincing, and she got it. So
and then she finally, right?
Yeah.
And then we see that the guy that was next to him, that helped, kill her and the kids or whatnot. And we see him taking a piss in the bathroom, then the water, and then the weeping. It's like, oh, well, he caught up now, so I guess that's it. But there was something interesting, because I remember there was a couple of times that the general was actually looking at Alma outside and then upstairs, and then when she was cleaning the flyers off the ground. But then when you saw the visuals through his wife and it was Alma, I was wondering, was he trying to remember? Is it her? Is he seeing her? Because
I think
that
it's
part
twofold.
Kind of.
There's one that's just that it's reminding him of the past, but there's this also subtlety that he is sexually aroused by indigenous women. That's his thing. That's, you look to, because it's kind of like, oh, he whored around. And then you see the way she's presented to him and way he keeps looking at her. It's not just that it's his past, it's that he is sexually aroused by the thing he hates so much. And it's one of those like really weird colonizer like double takes of like, oh, this white guy is trying to kill all this indigenous people, but at the same time he wants to have sex with the indigenous people. And so you have this really weird dynamic for him that he has nothing but disgust, and he looks down upon indigenous people because he doesn't view them as people. And yet, who does he find to be the most sexually alluring, attractive person? Indigenous people. And it's something we see.
It's almost as he's narcissist, misogynist.
Yeah. It's the craziest thing. He's an awful. He's like, indigenous. Duh. He's like, but indigenous though. You're like, what are you?
that is. I'm not okay. I'm gonna leave it at that because I was gonna say
it's
something.
a whole thing to unpack.
Yeah. But see, I was thinking that he was trying to recognize if that was someone he knew, which was Alma.
I think,
or were they using? Yeah, because I'm like, then why show her?
Yeah.
If it wasn't her,
she was an illusionist, and so definitely like she was doing things to mess with him. And I think that was one of the things that she was doing, is to really mess with them, is to be like, I'm haunting you for your sins of your past. And I genuinely believe that almost one of the women that he probably had his way with when he was younger, because it's the sad truth of what he was doing.
Because there was a video, like I was showing you on that site, like I was telling you about, that video was her, the actress that played her was with the guy, I guess her husband or boyfriend that was missing, and it showed her story. So I thought I was watching the wrong movie, but I think it's connected to how up to this point, the general and the genocide and who she was. Man, the movie's intense. I'm not gonna say it's fun to watch, because most horror films are fun to watch, but this one was kind of hurt. Like,
Yeah,
That's
it's
messed up. It hit close to home to all cultures.
yeah.
I
That's
mean,
what that's
the
what I loved it too.
genocide, the treatment of people,
Hmm.
treating people less than you because you believe they are less than you, but you
Yeah.
guys are in the same country, the same. I mean, it
And
just
they're viewed as the same people. They're both Latinos, and
yeah,
that's
it's
why I
like
really love this story because we look at it and we go, you can take these characters and put them anywhere else in the world, and it would still make sense. You could put them in
yeah.
China and Japanese relations. You can put this in, the Civil War Revolutionary era and have it white and black. You can put it with, other Latinos and other indigenous and all these people. So it's like it's really this like tale as old as time, really old story of this really terrible person. How his family tends to ignore that he's a terrible person because I can't speak for other cultures, but Latinos, that's a big problem among us, is that a lot of the older men tend to say really out of pocket shit that like others of us have to go, hey, whoa, like Jews don't really run the world, like chill out with that, nonsense. And but we're just like, oh, just ignore it, like you'll have the gay uncle. He's weird. He's that's his don't worry about it. Is he gay? No, don't
Well,
say it. He's not.
that goes for the black culture too, what you just said. So,
Yeah, it's
I
like
mean,
it's one of those things
it's
of
the
that,
same.
yeah, it's really like this thing of like you're so I really think the movie is timeless, and I like that's what kind of just like I love it that it's a Guatemalan movie made by Guatemalans, Latinos, and everything. But I really wish they could do this movie or do a movie like it in the United States because I feel like when it's in English, it's going to spread to a lot bigger audience. It's going to say a lot more stuff because I think more people need to see this message, and I think more Latinos need to see this message of what this movie is trying to say, which is, don't be racist, don't be a dickhead, like don't be a racist dickhead, please. Like this is, this is not the things we should be doing to each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's really frightening because the thing that the general hated is also what he lusts for,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a lot of that really happens in real life in many
Yes.
different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
You're with the guy, you're faithful to the guy. Coming from a woman, it's my perspective, and then he is this misogynist, narcissist person, but he just uses the woman, just
Mm-hmm.
use them for his own is terribleness, but he loves it, hates them. That I mean, if we could get the backstory of the general, no,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like
No,
I
you're
think
right. No, I literally
the story of him
yeah,
being, because kids don't wake up and say, "Hey, I'm going to be this."
yeah,
I wish we could see, or they had a movie. I know it's very important for the weeping woman, but it's definitely something of how he got to where
he was
just before he steps foot on, Guatemala to do some horrible stuff. Like,
yeah.
because
And he did it in the name
I
of his
mean, we
country.
don't know
So he
about
says.
his past, but
Yeah.
only by the perspective of Alma, and then what his wife was saying, what his daughter was saying, and then during the trial. But I'm curious.
Yeah, that's the one thing I would say is I wish there was more of this movie. I wish they really dived into bigger things, like the general. I wish, because he's the villain, I want to learn more about him. And think this thing is, and the reason I guess like another reason I love this movie is because it hits home for me. It's like I grew up with my mom recently divorced my stepdad, and he was a far right wing conservative guy, hated immigrants. My mom jumped the border illegally. He knew that, and so here he is married to this woman for 20 something years, and he's constantly like, yeah, those damn immigrants, they need to all go back. And I'm like, your wife jumped the border illegally 3 times. She got caught once, and then the second time she ran back. Third, she finally made it. And I'm like, and you hate immigrants? And I think it's one of those like the classic saying of, well, they're one of the good ones, which is like the most unsettling thing you can hear from someone, and as we've all heard it, like, oh, well, that's different. They're one of the good ones. They're like, oh. And I feel like he's this. The general is
that goes for another topic for the people of color, well, specifically like me. Like they say there's 2 types. I've heard this from other people who have said, oh, there's 2 types of black people. There's the black people, and then there's the other black people, which I'm not going to say the word, but I've heard that from, I'm like, wait a minute. There's only one type I know, but that's a whole nother topic. whole
Yeah,
nother
no,
situation there.
I used to
But
teach at a middle school with the predominantly black kids, and it was wild to see how the principal was an older black woman, and oh, if she ever heard the N-word in any capacity, that woman tore, and she's like, I didn't get sprayed by hoses and bitten by dogs to hear that word. I don't care any type of use used. I don't want to hear that shit. And I'm just like, and some of the kids use it as like, and you even have some of the Mexican kids that are friends with all the black kids, they're saying it, and the black kids are like, well, how do we feel about him saying it? Like, he shouldn't say it. And he's
nobody
like,
should say
like, oh, my dad's black.
No one should say anything about anyone, because we're all on this planet trying to survive.
Yeah.
And remember, this planet is just floating in space, and we hope it don't plummet or hit anything else, or
so
something hit us, because we're all gone. It don't matter. We're gonna be like the dinosaurs, just gone, just fossils, and then another species is gonna find us, just like have us in the museum. And then we won't care what color.
Exactly.
No one will care.
Like, if we were all skeletons, then nobody know nothing.
Yeah, the skeletons are all the same. Yeah. Just bones. But anyway. Yeah. But this film it can really just bring out a conversation.
Yes.
But it's really good. It's very deep. It's creepy. The tones, the sound, the music. I was like, I was a little creeped out in certain things, especially. There's only one scene that got me in the entire movie, is when the help, she was talking to her, telling her the things, don't do this, don't do that. When Alma was first there, she went to bed. Alma was at the top bunk, and all of a sudden, like, as the camera is moving in, you hear like her moving, and then she just like hang her head. It just was looking, and I was like, "Oh hell!"
That long black hair in the darkness.
Yeah,
too, man.
I was like, "Did she stay like that all night?"
It's one of those things where you just like, should I, like, this is a scare. It's like they really play with like, should you be scared in this moment? It's like when the house is flooding and he sees the woman and she's naked, sort of. Well, she's naked. We don't say anything. And she's like, in the shower, in the bath, whatever. And he's like looking at her. You're like, that's like, is she gonna like, what's gonna happen? Because like, you think, well, she is vulnerable, she's naked, but we know at that point that she's a ghost, at least to some degree, that she's evil. Or I wouldn't even say evil, because really she's killing a bad guy. So it's like, you wonder, is how this is gonna end? And then it cuts to him just with his erection. You're like, and then you're laughing. So it really, like, the way the movie goes, for my only complaint was, I wish it was longer. I wish we had more time to build up with La Llorona, where she came from, the general and everything, because we did get a lot of the characters, but I didn't feel like we got enough development from the characters. I feel like we could have added 20 minutes more to really develop everyone, so we could hate the general more, understand La Llorona more. And like, to me, I'm just like, that ending too, I'm like, oh, I hope this isn't just a stinger. Like, give me another one of these, because I love the commentary of everything,
Mm-hmm. Well, I would definitely check this film out. If, for those watching, please check it out. It is on Shudder. It is not for the faint of heart, but it really is creepy. It's just different, but it's really good. Don't pay attention to the subtitle. Well, unless you have to. Pay attention to the subtitles. But some people be bitching about that. It's like, who cares?
The story is there. Yeah,
enjoy
the story
it, or
is there.
get the speak and say. Have it speak to you. Enjoy the film. The visuals is great.
It's worth it, honestly. Reading the subtitles for this is worth it, because it's not even that long of a film. No. And it really is just this really, and honestly, to me, it gives people this idea, this introduction to Latino history, because this is real. This is all, the general's a real person. He's based on a real life person who did all these things. This is history. And so it's not corny. If you're thinking like the Curse of La Llorona, there's going to be jump scares. There's no jump scares. I don't think there's a single jump scare in this entire film. As far as
no, not really. No.
Yeah. And so it's not a scary movie, but it really is. It's haunting, and it really is going to let, as a Latino, it shows the bad side of our history and how we should move forward with that bad side of history. Definitely. Ignoring it and being like, oh, we love Indigenous. Like, no, we treat Indigenous terribly. Then we need to remind ourselves that all of us are Indigenous. That's our history. And there's Indigenous that are full-blown Indigenous that are still there, that are still speaking their languages they've been speaking for thousands of years. And we need to respect that and treat them like citizens. So this movie, all around, I love it. And I really appreciate you letting me pick this one, because I I love it, and I'm so glad that Shudder has this classic because you can't watch it anywhere else. So shout out to Shudder. Thank you for having good selections.
Yes. So, but I want to say thank you so much, Matthew, for coming on here. Like I said, I love your energy. I love how you talk about movies and things in general. I mean, you don't only talk about movies, you talk about all kind of stuff on his TikTok. It is amazing, has a big following. Thank you for being on Shudderary. I'm so honored.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, go follow me on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. I'm trying to do everything, do more of it. And yeah, I also do folktales. So if you want folktales from around the world, whether it's African, African American, Latino, Indigenous, European, Asian, pretty much think about all the folktales mythology you hear about. I do the stuff that is not heard about. I do the original story of John Henry, the immortal Stagger Lee, one of my favorite folktale characters. You want to hear about Greek and Norse mythology and all that. Not go to someone else. There's a million people doing that. I'm doing Latinos and Aztecs and Indigenous and all that stuff.
He
So if you want that
does.
kind of
He
stuff,
does. I see it. I see it. So thank you once again. And if you really do love this video, like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends, go watch the film, all the above. Follow him. He is amazing. So until next time, thank you everyone for watching. Bye.